All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
We're going streaky! Yes!
What's happening, guys? Happy Friday afternoon. What in the blue hell is going on? It is your boy. It is Memphis here at the Dynasty WarZone, the People's Dynasty podcast. On today's show, I'm going to be talking about Dalvin Cook, a little Alexander Mattison, and of course, my long overdue, I owe you guys my sophomore surges and purges. So, going to do this show last week. I was going to do it with my main man, Jerry. He is, of course, the man of the hour and the man with the power, but he didn't have any power last week. Jerry had a power outage at his home in the Ames, Iowa area. I didn't know they had power. I thought everything ran on corn, in corn with a C, corn. I thought everything ran on corn in Iowa with Jerry, but unable to get the show going last week. And then because of you guys know, you're loyal listeners, because of my son's baseball schedule, I was unable to get back behind the mic on Friday or Saturday. So I owe it and I know it. So I am going to take care of you guys with my sophomore surges and purges. As I jump into that, I want to remind you guys that we are a 2-channel podcast. You may say to yourself, Self, what do you mean about 2 channels? Well, of course, this is streaming live on the Dynasty WarZone podcast feed and the Dynasty WarZone YouTube feed. The main show, the big show, the mothership, the Wednesday show, that's been streaming live on the Player Profiler YouTube channel, as well as the Player Profiler audio podcast channel. Now, all the podcasts stream on the Dynasty WarZone podcast. You get them all there, as well as our buddy Dallas, as well as our buddies Chad, Jesse, and Mike, when Mike's not out defending our country. God bless that man. And so our friends, we've got some big specials coming up on the Dynasty WarZone show, but that's why you subscribe to both. YouTube, Dynasty WarZone, YouTube, Player Profiler, podcast, Player Profiler, Dynasty WarZone. It's just whether you're an audio consumer, you have 2 places to subscribe. If you're a video consumer, you have 2 places to subscribe. So please subscribe everywhere. Enjoy the show. And I'm going to jump right into it. I actually have, normally I hit you guys with a good people, bad tweets. But what I've actually got for you is a good people, bad trades. And you know this person very, very well. Let me just take 1 minute, maybe less, to talk about our patron. Patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. This is our most loyal, our biggest supporters. They help us out over there. These lights, Tony Soprano posters, computers, these ring lights, all of this, is due to the support. You got to have some production value. I'm not going to be the guy that has like a jersey hanging in the background. I mean, today it's purple in honor of the Dalvin Cook, Alexander Mattison news, but it could be a different color, and all that's thanks to the support of the patrons. They make this show look good. They make this show run good, and they make me feel good. Pause. Not in like a negative, bad way, but like in the way that's like, yesterday, as I had some time, we were really deep diving and workshopping this Dalvin Cook, Alexander Mattison trade. And a lot of what you're getting ready to hear, we've already discussed. Like, this is a day old if you're a patron over at patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. So if that's something that you're interested in. And last thing, people say, well, where are your tiers and this and $5? Guys, it's $5, period. The group chat, the extra podcast, the help with your roster, all of that is free. Well, not free. It's included in the $5 a month. Again, only people who run OnlyFans and show that thing are the ones getting rich with premium content. We're just trying to keep Bo Jackson well lit, Tony Soprano looking angry, well lit here on the YouTube. That's what the patron does. They just keep this show going. So thank you to the patrons, and thank you for considering it. Patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. Now, let's jump into it. Now, I've been busy. It's going to be very honest. A lot going on over at Player Profiler. Can't get into it yet, but just trust me, make sure you're subscribed everywhere because there is a ton of cool stuff coming your guys' way. The loyal listeners, the loyal subscribers to the Dynasty Warzone, you're going to see more of my face, good, bad, or indifferent. You're going to see more of me in more ways than probably you've ever wanted to on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. Can't really get into that now. So I didn't have a good people, bad tweets. So, our patrons, they save these things for me. They hang on to them, and like they have they have their own file. But one of the first few, a gentleman named Pat, Australian, amazing dude. Pat was like, how about a good people, bad trades? And I'm like, you've piqued my interest. And he was like, he sends me this screenshot, and we don't redact names in the Dynasty Warzone patron leagues. And this trade was proposed by, I'll just read it as it reads on Sleeper. At Jerry Sin DWZ has proposed a trade to Pat. Pat receives Alexander Mattison. Jerry receives Cooper Kupp.
Are you disgusted? I am.
Yeah, that's pretty bad, Jerry. I mean, I see what you did there. You're trying to capitalize on the situation. And I got a chuckle out of this. And I love Pat's response because, Pat sent me the screenshot of the trade with Jerry. And it says, ha, 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 are you after a dick pic or something? Because Pat knew better. You're going to miss every shot you don't take. That's just the way life works. But this was funny. And when Pat sent it to me as a means of having like a bit of content for good people, bad tweets, this time, good people, bad trades. Jerry, we see you, but we outed you. We never redact names. I'm going to talk about Alexander Mattison and some of the targets I would be looking at here in just a second as I transition to the Dalvin Cook news. But Jerry, even on vacation, even on your 10th anniversary, Pat was not going to bend over and give you a present. He said, absolutely not. Shame on you, Jerry. That was a good one. I mean, it was almost like this.
Federal prison. Federal fucking prison. If you're that fucking stupid.
All right. Dana got Jerry with a little federal prison. That's where Jerry should go right now. He should go to prison for sending a trade like that. All right. Let's jump into it. Let's jump into the Dalvin Cook and the Alexander Mattison news. So yesterday it came out. Well, it's been rumored for a while. And I hate to say I told you so. Oh, wait a minute. I'm just kidding. It's me. I love to tell you I told you so. I told Jerry this. He rebuked me twice. I told Alan Seslowski the same thing. He's going to get cut. No. I was like, well, maybe if they rework his contract. Gang, they clearly let him go. And I believe it was Brian in our group chat yesterday. Brian was like, hey, what if he goes to Miami and the impact on A-Chain? We'll probably wind up dealing with that once he signs because I would much rather give you a show on the known as opposed to spend the next 20 minutes speculating. But if a team really wanted him, really, really wanted him, they could have just traded for him. And Brian had a great comeback. Brian was like, well, why would you trade something for him if you know you're going to cut him? Well, then he has to clear waivers. And I'm not saying a team's going to be super excited to pick up that big contract, but if the Miami Dolphins really want him, could New England pick him up as a blocker? I guess they could. New England's been interested in DeAndre Hopkins. He's coming into town next week for a visit. I'm sure we'll have that on next Wednesday's show as well. But yeah, for me, this was not a surprise. So, but we do this every year. And every year, it's like when you were a little kid and your mom said, son, daughter, whatever, Billy, Jane, whatever, don't touch that stove. It's hot. And you can't take your mom's word for it. You can't take your dad's word for it. You're like, I don't know what hot even means. So you got to go up and you got to go and you just got to put your hand right there on it and burn your hand. We never learn about this. We always go the wrong way. This was the danger of doing it backwards, and I tried to convince Jerry and I tried to convince Alan that, this was leaked by the media. And you may ask yourself, well, but Memphis, how is this different than Joe Mixon? Joe Mixon was ruined was rumored to be a cap casualty earlier in the spring. But I'll tell you, what are the differences between the Dalvin Cook situation and the Joe Mixon situation? It's a great question. The difference is some Joe Slapdick on Twitter was the one who started the Dalvin Cook news. Excuse me. The difference is that some random slapdick was the one that started the Joe Mixon news on Twitter because he was a quote unquote cap casualty. Whereas the Dalvin Cook news came from Adam Schefter. Now, Adam Schefter didn't have a named source, but this was coming from Schefter, Rappaport, Tom Pelissero. These are the ones leaking this rumor. And, one side here have sources. That's Pelissero. That's Shefty. That's Rappaport. The other one just has itchy Twitter fingers. They're ready to make up some stuff and get some engagement, and Joe Mixon's going to get cut. That's the difference. One group is sourced, and the other is just speculative bullshit. And it happens. And I've posted it, guilty. I've speculated it, guilty. But I act on it a little bit differently when it comes from someone who is sourced. Now, does Shefty get them all right? No. Remember a few years ago, they were going to trade up for Mac Jones in San Francisco with the 3rd overall pick. And Shefty's sources deceived him, let him down the wrong path. But if I have to put my money on someone being right, it's going to be Schefter, Rappaport, those guys, as opposed to just, and not that the theory is bad that Joe Mixon could be a cap casualty, but it wasn't sourced. It didn't come from the Bengals. It was speculative. So that's the difference for me. Now, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 2 months ago, Alexander Mattison was the buy. He was going much cheaper than he is now. But now that it's finally official, you had people on both sides of the fence. You had me on one side, the correct side. You had me on one side saying, he's going to get cut. I think he's going to get cut. Then you had guys like Jerry on the other side. That's the wrong side. They had Jerry and they were on this side saying, they're going to keep him. But we knew that this news had been out there for a while. It's like the Trey Lance news. It's sourced. It's sourced within the building that if Brock Purdy is healthy, he's the starter. And yet the Trey Lance crowd just won't listen. Why? Because they like Trey Lance. We like Dalvin Cook. We want to keep Dalvin Cook, but we had to wait until it's actually official. And now you've lost any chance of getting Alexander Mattison cheaping if you believe in him, or you've lost any chance to actually get rid of Dalvin Cook for anything tangible. So 2 weeks ago, it was a different story. But now, for me, Alexander Mattison is the sell, and Dalvin Cook is the buy. I'm buying Dalvin Cook. Now, I would prefer to move young, unproven type players for Cook rather than to move a bunch of picks. I think the most I'd give is maybe a second and 24. Now, mind you, if your league has not had its draft yet, I'd give a 23 mid-second and maybe a third next year. I'd give a 23 second. Excuse me, a 23 second and a 23 third. If I got him done, I'd have to be a contender, knowing that I may only get one good year out of this deal, but I'd be more than happy to do it. Who would I be looking to move him for? I mean, as much as I don't love Isaiah Pacheco, I'm going to talk about him in a little bit. It's kind of the same thing, I guess. Antonio Gibson, love Antonio Gibson. They're still way far apart even after the news on Dynasty rankings. That's going to be Sunday's show, by the way. If you're watching on the Dynasty WarZone YouTube, I appreciate it. On Sunday night, I'm going to have friend John Sheps on, and we're going to be doing some Dynasty ADP hits and misses. And Gibson was one of the ones that I almost did when we were doing that show. And Isaiah Pacheco is going to be featured on that show as well. But Pacheco, Gibson, I want to move into a running back. I want to move into something safer. Maybe you have someone that thinks Joe Mixon's going to jail or getting suspended or cut or both. Can I go get Mixon? I don't think you'll get Miles Sanders. I'd love to get Kendre Miller to be making these type of moves. But I'm buying Dalvin Cook. I would love to give Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, I wouldn't give Gibson, and I'm mixing these guys up. I do apologize. I am a one-man band, so I would love to give up Isaiah Pacheco for Dalvin Cook. I don't love it. He's a between the tackles grinder in Kansas City. Weird stat I saw the other day is that Patrick Mahomes is not a good check down quarterback. I never realized. I was stunned. I was shocked. I was shocked by the fact that Lamar Jackson on a percentage base, so the number of throws thrown versus the number of check downs, Patrick Mahomes' percentage is less. It's more total targets to the running back position, but it's less total check downs by percentage because he throws the ball more. But yeah, it's like 3.4% of his passes are check downs. It's crazy. So I'm looking to get out of him. Like I said, looking for young guys. I'm looking for, those are the kind of guys that I'm looking to get Dalvin Cook for. Can I move Pacheco? Can I get Dalvin Cook plus? That's kind of where I'm going. With Mattison, I'm selling. It's a perceived cheap price. I'm not giving him away, but I'm not sending that Jerry offer that Jerry just sent. You guys know I love me some Jerry, but I'm not going to offer Mattison for guys like, Cooper Kupp. I think that this kind of kills the deal right there. Alexander Mattison has 6 career starts, and Dalvin Cook in the last 4 years has missed more than 6 games. He's played 4 seasons in the NFL, and he's got 6 career starts. And, it just tells you he's maybe a starter. They gave him starter money. I don't know. He's never had more than 500 yards in an entire season. And he's a decent pass catcher, better than I realized. He does have a 30 reception season under his belt, but I'm all in on Dwayne McBride. I almost said Trey McBride. I'm on him too. I'm all over Dwayne McBride. If he can keep it together between the ears, I think he is 100% going to steal this job by the time the season's over. And I don't know what the parameters of Mattison's contract looks like, but a lot of these free agent deals, especially running backs, is 1 year and we'll see. I know my buddy, the Podfather, and I know my buddy, Jax Falcone. They're both interested. I don't want to say big. That would be unfair. I know they're both interested in Ty Chandler. I'm not. I see him as a special teamer guy. I could see where by the end of the season that Dwayne McBride is really cut into the rushing workload. I don't know what kind of pass catcher he is. He was never used that way in college, and he could just be a hammer. But maybe he can catch the ball a little bit better than we think. So for me, I would be looking to sell Mattison. What am I looking for? I'm looking for mid-tier wide receivers. I would love to get a Terry McLaurin from an ADP and a Dynasty startup. Again, I was researching 2 topics today. I'd love to get TMC there, Deontay Johnson, or Brandon Ayuk. Those are the 3 guys in the range that I would love to get for Alexander Mattison. And then Gibson is someone right there in that range as well. Gibson was surprisingly low when I was doing my ADP research for Sunday night's show, that I was pretty surprised where he's still falling in ADP in 1 quarterback dynasty startups. I was pretty surprised. I wasn't quite ready to see that. So those are the 4 guys I'm targeting to get if I could get out of the Alexander Mattison business. And again, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Brandon Ayuk are the wide receivers, and then running backs like Gibby. If you have somebody, because there's a lot of Miles Sanders love, that's me. There's a lot of Miles Sanders hate, that's others. I'm still the guy who's firmly in on Miles Sanders. I just don't believe in Alexander Mattison. That's me. So that's how I'm handling it. We'll reevaluate Dalvin Cook once he lands with a new team. But he's a buy. Like I said, if I could buy him for a second, if I can get out for a second on Dalvin Cook, I'd be thrilled to pick him up for a second. Maybe you can get a super bummed GM. And if you already have him and you're like, should I sell him? No, just hold, see where he's going, see what your roster looks like. If you have him on a contender, awesome. If he winds up on Miami, awesome. You want him to wind up in a spot where he gets used functionally. If he lands in Kansas City, which sounds crazy, but it could. If he were to land in Kansas City, that's perfect. It's the same thing that the Niners did last year with Christian McCaffrey. Ironically, the same draft class. Why would you bring him in? Because he's a winning piece, but he's not going to be a big dynasty contributor early in the season. I think they would governor his touches a little bit. But he's still going to be a guy that's going to probably perform in like that RB 15 range. If he were to stay healthy, play the way that I think he'll be used this season, how I would use him as a head coach, I think that would be really, really good. So that's kind of what I'm doing with the team in Minnesota. That's why I have the purple lights on. So I'm going to jump into my surges and purges real quick. If you didn't catch the original version of this was done, it'll be 2 weeks ago Sunday. So that was on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. Our guest was Alan Seslowski from RotoWire and the Sonic Truth Dynasty podcast. And he had some good surges and purges. But I owe mine. I can't get you Jerry's. Maybe I'll get Jerry's on down the line. Before I do that, because I'm in charge and it's a live show, Chad Skaggs wants to know, Dwayne McBride or Wilson in a rookie draft? And Chad, I appreciate the question. And Chad, I'm going to say, God damn it, that's like making me choose between two kids that I love. You know, like kids. It's like fathers choosing between sons. These guys are two of my absolute favorite for me because of, here's how I look at it, Chad. For me, if Dwayne McBride and Michael Wilson both have the best rookie seasons within their range of outcomes, Dwayne McBride is worth way more this time next year. I also worry about Michael Wilson, who I love, that if the Cardinals, let's say they get like the 1 and 2 overall in the NFL draft or the 2 and the 3, there's a real chance where they could still take a Caleb Williams if they got 1 overall. I think they'd be crazy not to. But my 2 overall would be Marvin Harrison Jr. So for me, based on this situation, even though I really, really, really like Michael Wilson, I would lean McBride based on the upside, the offense, but it's closer than you think, and it's a damn good question. So, Chad, thank you so much for chipping in the YouTube live stream. I definitely appreciate you. All right, my purges. Let's jump in. Let's talk about a couple of guys that I'm looking to unload. Isaiah Pacheco. I got up my wires crossed a little bit earlier. I can't wait until Sunday on Player Profiler when I'll have a professional producer helping me with the show, even one-man show. So I'm really excited for that. But Isaiah Pacheco last year, a little fun stat, 13 catches last year. So 13 of his 183 touches from last year were receptions. That's 7%. 7% of his total touches were checkdowns. And I mentioned earlier the stat about Patrick Mahomes. 3.4-ish% of all of his attempts last year were checkdowns to the running back. Why is that? It's a good question. Why would Patrick Mahomes not check it down more than like Lamar Jackson and those type running quarterbacks? And I think, and here's another little side note for you. Trevor Lawrence was right there in the top 5 as in the lowest number of checkdowns to the running back. I think it's bad news for ETN. Check out the GOAT District pod from the other night, Wednesday night, live on YouTube, and I broke it down there. But he doesn't check the ball down a lot. He doesn't catch the ball a lot. You're really hoping for the between the tackles grinder role, and it's because Patrick Mahomes pushes the ball down the field. You know, it's read 1, 2, 3. Offensive line holds up. He's mobile enough to sustain a play, and then he pushes the ball downfield. He's not looking read 1, read 2, check down. Does it surprise you that Baker Mayfield leads the league in check down pass percentage? It does not for me. It does for another guy. We'll talk about him in a minute. But again, he was only used sparingly in the receiving game. They brought back Jerick McKinnon, who seemed to be the preferred receiving option in this offense. And the carcass of Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still there. So for me, Pacheco, I saw him going in leagues like during rookie drafts for around the 110. Someone actually offered me the 110 in the league for him in a league where I needed running backs. I thought I was interested. I'm glad I passed because I thought about it. But the reason why I passed then is I was pretty sure, and I still feel pretty sure, that Isaiah Pacheco is this year's Elijah Mitchell, a guy coming off of a rookie year, less than optimal NFL draft capital from his rookie class, and just a guy that I could see Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati. I could see this in this arms race, if you will, where Buffalo just signed a defensive end, Greg Floyd from the Rams. I could see where they would be in on Dalvin Cook. Maybe KC trades for somebody. I just don't believe that this is a long-term sustainable role. And due to the lack of passing volume, I'm purging Isaiah Pacheco from rosters. My second purge is Sam Howell. And I've seen him go anywhere from like seconds in rookie drafts to I saw an early third, like a 301, and then an additional third. I'm getting rid of Sam Howell. I don't get it. I get that I don't get it, but I do not get it. What are we excited about? I mean, I think Brock Purdy and the success of a Brock Purdy has put in a lot of pie in the sky, all moonlight in canoes as it relates to these late round QBs. And it's like, well, Sam Howell's not in San Francisco. And he doesn't have George Kittle and Debo and Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell and Kyle Shanahan calling plays. He's in Washington. And I love Terry McLaurin, and Jahan Dotson was a surge for Allen, but I'm not seeing it. I'm not going to be the sucker. And guys, anyone who's using last year's Washington stats to predict what Sam Howell's going to be is a sucker. They're an absolute fool because it's a brand new OC. Scott Turner's gone. We don't know what that offense is going to look like under Eric Bieniemy. It could be a lot of different things. And I'm also not going to be the sucker that's going to say, oh, well, he was in Kansas City last year, so let me go shuffle on. Look at those stats. Andy Reid was the architect of the Kansas City offense, basically the play caller, and Patrick Mahomes ran it. So there's nothing to correlate there. I'm just the guy who's getting the hell out of the Sam Howell business before the getting's good. Came out the other day on RotoWire it was RotoWire. I'm a RotoWire guy now. No more NBC Sports Edge. Boo NBC Sports Edge. The blurbs are okay, but the fantasy advice, not so much. But yeah, they're still in the Jacoby Brissett business. So if you can get someone who believes in Eric Bieniemy and believes in Sam Howell, I believe they'd be off my roster. So I'm going to take just 1 second to do just a little promotion. So this coming Sunday on the Dynasty WarZone, Jerry will be getting back from his vacation, much earned and well-deserved vacation. I'm going to have John Sheps. John Sheps is a returning guest, the original host of the Dynasty WarZone, and a really good friend. He's going to come on with me Sunday night. We're going to be diving into some Dynasty ADP hits and misses. Where do we see some value? Where do we see some big misses in the general mindset of the public? Monday night, I have John McGlynn of the P2W Fantasy Network, and John was with me last Monday, and he just had some horrible personal and technical difficulties. We tried to overcome the technical difficulties. He could not overcome the stuff going on behind the scenes. So we scrapped it. We scrubbed the video, and we're going to be going from scratch on Monday. John's going to be talking about the value of good communication in a league through the building of a solid constitution. Both of those shows will be on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. So if you're listening to this on the Dynasty WarZone feeds, either audio or video, you need to go over and subscribe to the Player Profiler. If you're listening on Player Profiler, go subscribe to the Dynasty WarZone, because you might be wondering why you missed this podcast. That's why. It's on the Dynasty WarZone feeds. You'll never miss out if you subscribe wherever you subscribe. Wherever you get your pods, go get us. All right. Let's get into my surges. I got 2 surges for you, and I'll get you out of here. First surge, number 1, Mr. Kenny Pickett. And I know. It's like, it wasn't great. I don't think he had 20 points in one fantasy game. But here's the thing. He had more passing yards than Justin Fields. I'm just kidding with you. I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm busting your balls. If you have some, just busting your balls. But he did show flashes to me. For me, with Pickett, it's as simple as this. He has the weapons. He has Deontay Johnson going into, I think, year 5. He has George Pickens going into year 2. Pat Freiermuth, year 3. Najee Harris, year 3. Major additions on that offensive line. Broderick Jones, Isaiah Siaomulo, Again, my Samoan, not what it used to be. And then they brought in the big tight end out of Darrell Washington out of Georgia. So they put some beef across that offensive line to help give him time to make those reads. For me, he's in the right division. He's in the AFC North. This is going to be a shootout division. Cleveland looks to be on the right track. They're building through their offense. They're adding wide receivers. They drafted another wide receiver. They brought in Elijah Moore via trade, and they're allegedly in on DeAndre Hopkins. This is a team that wants to win and be able to score points. Cincinnati, I'm not going to go into Cincinnati. It's Joe Burrow, it's T. Higgins, it's Joe Mixon, it's Jamar Chase. Maybe you've heard of these guys. I like the addition of Irv Smith. So you look at Baltimore, you got Lamar back. They added Flowers, they added OBJ. Hopefully, Mark Andrews returns to form. Not really his fault last year, but I'm talking about that tight end 1 overall in a season form. So this is a division where they're going to have to score. And he's got the NFL draft capital, right? He's got a first-round pick. And the Steelers should be good enough. I think their win total is either 7.5 and an 8.5. Depends on where you shop around to get your season win totals from a gambling standpoint. They're not going to be bad enough to get a Drake May or a Caleb Williams in next year's draft. So I think you've probably got him for another couple of years. And, he is more of a rusher than we saw last year. Now, I don't think he's going to be Kyler Murray or Lamar, but I also don't think that, he's, Carson Wentz back there. I think, I'm looking for maybe just like a tier below Danny Dimes. I don't think people realize how good of a runner Daniel Jones actually is, but, this guy ran 95 times in 3 seasons in college. So I could probably have worded that a little bit better, but there were 3 seasons where he had 95 rush attempts in a season. So he's not afraid to get out there and move around. So those reasons is like a QB3, or if you got caught up in like a bad spin cycle in a draft where you were on one end, like say like one end of the draft or the other, and like in between your picks where you're on the ends, and they started banging out a lot of QBs and you missed out, might be a good place to stop the bleeding is Kenny Pickett. I'm hoping for a little Daniel Jones, more in the passing game than Jones, and maybe a little less in the running game than Jones. But if you get a guy that gives you like a QB 15 season and has a Derek Carr type career arc, that's more than helpful in the game of Dynasty fantasy football from a super flex perspective. All right, my last guy, pretty well known. I was kind of already in on him. And then I got to say, the Podfather, he's leaned on me and he's convinced me that Rachaad White is the man. Not that I wasn't already the man. So I made a tweet on him, last night about how much I'm in on him, because the tweet centered around a Baker Mayfield stat. Baker last year, I've already mentioned this, checked down 11.6% of the time. And that's huge, huge for Rachaad White. I know you're going to say, well, what about Kyle Trask? You got to be a sucker to play Kyle Trask, even as a team quietly quitting. So I see all this passing volume. So this gentleman said, well, he wasn't very efficient in the running stats. And I'm like, what running stats? What was the measurement that you're going by? I was like, I'm the current tallest person in the room I'm standing in. And I don't think he got it. I was like, and then I followed that up with, it's impressive if I'm the tallest person in a room and I happen to be standing in an NBA locker room. It's not as impressive if I'm the only adult standing inside of a daycare. Context matters. Could his rushing yards per game have been better? Absolutely. Do I care? Absolutely not. So last year on the season, he was the RB 36 on the season. Finished one spot ahead of Isaiah Pacheco, by the way. But he was the RB 36 on the season, and Fat Lenny was the RB 12 on the season last year. And the RB 12 isn't there anymore. So Rachaad White and Lenny, they scored a combined 365 PPR points. Now, I know Rachaad White's not going to get all of those. I dig it. I'm smart enough and been doing this long enough to understand. Thank you. I'll save you the comment. I appreciate you. I'm smart enough to understand he's not going to get all of those. But let's say he gets 70% of that 365. That's 255 PPR points. That would have made him the RB6 last year. This is a guy that's got a clear path to an RB1 season. I like the Podfather's comparison to David Johnson. He had 50 catches and 8 starts last year, an 86% catch rate. And now he has the quarterback. Okay, let's do a little check game. This is the Memphis check game. Get your little digits out. Unless you're driving, keep your hands on the wheel, 10-2. Let's do the Memphis check game. Good pass catching running back, check. The number one quarterback as it relates to checking down to the running back, check. Bad team, check. Playing from behind, check. I don't see a thing where you can get really hurt unless he gets hurt with Rachaad White. I said on the Mind of Mansion podcast that I thought he could get 100 targets. I think I might be low. As more data has come to light, as more research has come out, I would not be surprised if he had 100 catches, much less 100 targets. So for me, bad team, playing from behind, pass catching running back, passing down to the running back from the quarterback position. Phillip Rivers might be our new, Baker Mayfield might be our new Phillip Rivers. Remember Phillip Rivers that 1 year in Indy just kept checking down and feeding JT and feeding Naheem Hines, and they both had a shitload of receptions. That's what I'm seeing for Rachaad White in Tampa Bay. And I don't care that he's not on a good team. I don't care that he doesn't have a good quarterback. I don't care. Pass-catching running backs from a pass-catching quarterback on a bad team is PPR gold in junk time. Just check down, check down, check down, check down. So he's also going at about 34 overall in ADP. So this is the bonus for you that listen to the bonus show. He's going around 34. So he's going at the end of that third round. That's moving. That's player profiler. That's sharp data. Not so sharp data, like Fantasy Pros, they have him going way later, like RB19 later. So now's the opportunity to strike and go get Rachaad White before it's too late. And speaking of late, I'm running long. I got to get out of here. I've got game 2 of a doubleheader to go to with my son. But I will say this. There's been a challenge laid out from Scott Connor via Twitter. Now, Scott is a good podcaster in his own right and a friend that I've made on these Dynasty streets. And he posted a tweet on Thursday the 8th saying, hey, name one podcaster you think could do a 30-minute podcast with no mention of a single player. And one of his, tweeters or someone who saw this tweet said at DWZ Memphis. So I'm going to take the Scott Connor challenge next week on my bonus show. I'm going to see if I can fill your airwaves for a solid 30 minutes and give you solid, entertaining, actionable advice without mentioning one player's name. It may be tough. I can't say Rachaad White. I can't say Baker Mayfield. I can't say Will Levis. I can't say Sam Darnold. I can't say anybody. I can't say anything. I can say this.
The Crip Mac on hood.
I can say Crip Mac. I think that's fine. I think Crip Mac's good. But I can't say DJ Moore. I can't say Patrick Mahomes. I have to do 30 minutes actionable, fun, entertaining, 30 minutes of Dynasty advice. That's next week's bonus show. But you'll only get it if you're listening or watching on the Dynasty WarZone YouTube and podcast channels. You'll get some stuff from us on Player Profiler. I've said it twice already. I'll say it a final time. Subscribe to both feeds. Again, if you're a YouTube consumer, thank you for watching. Go subscribe to the Player Profiler one. If you're an audio subscriber, Spotify, Apple, Google Play, whatever, you're listening, go over and subscribe to the other. Dynasty WarZone Player Profiler. I'm going to be hitting you guys in the face, in the literal face, with a lot of Dynasty fantasy football stuff over the next couple of months as we get leading up to the season. As crazy as it is to say, we're 3 months away. 3 months away from the game we all love and can't get enough of. Remember, I'll be here Sunday night with John Sheps talking Dynasty ADP. I'll be back on Monday with John McGlynn talking good commissioner communication on the Kiss the Ring podcast. I appreciate you all. Thanks for hanging out with me for a few minutes, and I'll catch you guys next week. Thank you.